Pewdiepeeps. So, if you don't know, I'm an artist. One who has been studying art ever since I could walk, essentially. So today, I wanted to try something a little different, as I seen that Pewdiepie, yes, the Pewdiepie, has been teaching himself how to draw. And, you know, since I'm kind of an expert on this stuff, who better to review Pewdiepie's artwork than me? So today, I'm going to be grading Pewd's art and answer the question that I have asked myself for no reason: can he actually draw? So without any further ado, let's begin, shall we? Now, this is certainly, well, a drawing, but for real, he made this as a kid, so I think it's fair to say he gets a pass. I'm not gonna go suddenly a whiplash on him.
Not quite my tempo.
Now this one, he is 8 years old, I think, when he drew this. Now, I know this isn't exactly a masterpiece, but however, considering he was 8 here, we can already see some good fundamentals, especially with the facial features. Not being overly large, being fairly equal size to one another, and if it wasn't for the mouth being at a weird angle, I'd say that they're all positioned fairly nicely. So far, he's got the facial structure pretty well. Certainly better than what he had before. So, the fundamentals here, they're alright, they just need a little work.
To learn more things. And I thought, what if I do it for a longer time? What if I learn to draw? Then I can compare what I drew at the beginning and then compare with the end and be like, wow! At least that's what you want to see, right? I have no guarantees. This could be very embarrassing.
Yes, actually, that's a very common thing among artists, is that comparing our work can always feel so intimidating, but helpful. And the same goes for comparing our own work. Like for me, I look back on stuff I drew a year ago to see how far I've come and see how much I've improved. So you've already got the mindset, Pewds.
Speaking of which, I gotta draw my first drawing. Let's begin. Are you guys ready to cringe? It's all in here. Be nice, okay? I'm a sensitive artist. I want only good feedback.
Ah yes, he is a true artist after all. You know what? That's very impressive. So wait, I'm assuming you didn't use a guide for these drawings, but wow. Eyes are possibly one of the hardest things you can get right on the face. And it's good to see that you haven't just done big circles for eyes, because that's something a lot of people end up doing. You'd be surprised how often new people to art end up just making them giant circles instead of actually shaping them correctly, which is more square shaped. The pupils here could use a little bit more shading, but for a first attempt, it's pretty good.
Or I watched a tutorial. I watched a draw along by Akihito Yoshitomi. Really cool style. So drawing along, yeah, I guess it helped, but it still looks how it looks like. Cool.
They are a pretty good artist, however they're possibly not the best to try and learn from, especially if you're trying to get into drawing, because it's kind of like throwing yourself into the deep end rather, when you don't really know how to swim. But considering that's your result, and yeah, it's obviously not identical to the original, but considering that he's trying to learn, and that's his first tutorial, and he gets that, it's not bad, that's pretty good. Most people start out with very simple ones that help ease them in. Now, a lot of people would say, oh, this is cheating, it's not your art. But in actuality, this is something very helpful that every artist does, because it helps us learn. What do I mean by this? Well, for me, I recommend beginning artists to try tracing. I know, it's a very controversial thing, but tracing is really helpful. Because when you start out by tracing, it will help give you a better understanding of anatomy and how the body should look. It builds up muscle memory, so when you do it on your own, you have a better understanding of where things should go and how things should be positioned. It's not cheating, it's essentially using training wheels. But the problem is you don't want to depend yourself on tracing. You gotta work your way out of it, just like training wheels eventually.
I could never draw a girl, because I don't know about you guys, but I am in the girls are pretty, guys are ugly gang, okay? Whatever you prefer, that's fine, but I feel like if you draw a guy, it doesn't really matter. They can be ugly, whatever. But if you draw a girl and you want to make them pretty, it's hard. You got to be good at drawing to do that. So I thought that would be a good challenge to teach myself how to draw a girl. And here we have the result, and it's awful.
Now, I will say that's less of a drawing mindset, but more of a designing mindset. And I always recommend people like animators not to follow that approach. Just like men, women can be in all shapes and sizes, so to just stick to one blueprint of all girls being pretty is more of a hindrance actually to your abilities, because you're limiting what you're able to do. So I'm going to recommend to any artists out there not to follow that mindset that PewDiePie just said, because you'll end up just limiting yourself. I see PewDiePie has a very anime-esque style. However, although these are definitely improvements, the biggest critique I can give is the ears and the eyes. The ears are way too spread out from the head. Ears most of the time are not that far from the head. They're usually pretty close to it. They wouldn't be all splayed out like that. And the eyes and mouth are too far from the nose. With them being so far away, you could end up having an almost like a sloth looking effect. That's the best way I can describe it. I'm not sure why you crossed out that one. That one looks pretty good compared to the other ones. Now let's skip ahead a tad just to day 9 of Pewd's experiment.
Day 9, I guess I felt like I did a little better. That one's kind of fun. I'm not following any reference or anything. I'm just drawing based on what I learn. So sometimes they turn out 1 maybe out of 10.
And already so much improvement. The facial features are much more in order of the face. I see you've experimented with expressions and angles, which is always a good thing, and done really well. I see you're starting to come into your own style much more now.
Day 11, I felt like, okay, I should probably know how to draw a body, right? So I practiced that a lot. It looks like I did a lot, but I drew these so quickly that, I don't know, just a lot of bodies, started adding heads to them. And it was extremely hard for me to get the proportions of the head and the body right, as you can see here on the right. That's not it. Yeah, it's just kept drawing bodies, but I just fucking hated them.
And with day 11, honestly, considering this is your first time trying to draw bodies correctly, they're pretty good. I'm assuming you used references to help block out the body, but in terms of proportions when it comes to the head, for me, I find there's an easy fix for that. So the way I like to draw bodies is I'll start out by just creating blobby shapes where I want the body to be and how I want it to be positioned. Then once I have those blobs, I will begin to refine them into a design. It's not quite complex, but it's just detailed enough to the point where it'll give me a clue of where things are supposed to be. And I can see whether things like the head is too big or it's too small. And now I have the info right in front of me, I can confirm whether or not I need to change something or update something. So for when I get to the inking, it looks the best it can be, and for when I finalize it to look the best it can be again. But this is a really good thought process from PewDiePie here, considering proportions. That's always something you want to see with artists.
Pace decided to draw some anime characters. You can see Power on the left. I followed a tutorial online as well. This really helped a lot. I think drawing anime style was just easier somehow, and following a reference was also way easier. They're not good by any means, but I was finally, I just felt like it clicked. I could draw these super quick, and it was fun. I was just sketching random stuff, drew one quick one, moved on to the next one, and I really, really enjoyed it. After 24 days, I was finally having fun. Same with day 25. I was like, oh, these are even better. I'm kind of improving now. I drew these all really quickly too, and messing around with different facial expressions. Same with day 26. I feel like every day you can see improvement. And I drew another merch, and that one's not that bad.
You know what, as you should, Felix, because after watching that whole video, you say that in total you achieved all this in around 5 hours, all put together. And honestly, that's quite impressive, I will say. It takes weeks to months to even years for some people to make any type of progress like this in art. And in this case, I think PewDiePie early on found his right style to work in, that being a very anime-inspired style. And that's one reason why it may take long for someone to improve in art. It's purely because they're trying to work in the wrong style. After all, there's a common misunderstanding that art has to look realistic for it to be good. And that's especially true for newer artists. I remember myself thinking that something had to look real for it to actually look good. When in reality, realism may not be for you. Hell, with art as a medium, you can do so much more than just imitate life. That's why it's so special to beginners. If you're constantly drawing and seeing no improvement, it could mean you're working in the wrong style for you, and that you should probably try to branch out a bit and experiment in different styles to see whether or not there's another one out there that best suits you. Because not everyone suits the same style, everyone has a different type of style that works for them. Like for me, I work in a very animated style, with thick black lines and very harsh dramatic lighting. Not because I can't do anything else, but rather because it's simply much more efficient most of the time. And most of all, I find it enjoyable to work in this style. And that's what art is at the end of the day. It's supposed to be enjoyable, not only as a result, but making it as well. So if you're not having a good time while making something, then you probably should change the way you make it. And so, at the end of the day, can PewDiePie draw? I'm gonna say yes. Yes, PewDiePie can draw. Sure, he's probably not going to end up putting stuff in museums, but as an artist myself, I can say that for him only really having 5 hours to make this happen, I am definitely impressed. For what I can see, he's a quick learner and has a lot of fun making this stuff. He certainly has my seal of approval. And if he wants to keep doing this, I recommend he keeps trying it as a hobby. It's a good way to let out stress, to get thoughts out your head, and you never know. If you want, you can open a museum, PewDiePie. Call it the Brofist Gallery. But that was just my thoughts on PewDiePie. And other artists out there, what did you think of his artwork? Was there anything I missed, or is there anything that perhaps I got wrong? Let me know. And with that, I will see you all next time.